You know, when you do this thing every week for 2.5 years, there are going to be days you don't look so good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a little sunburned.
You are. You're pink. Mm-hmm. I'm a little sunburned, but not bad. I mean, we wore sunscreen. We were in San Diego.
Right. For the weekend, kind of Thursday through Sunday. Mm-hmm. Just a little quick, run. We'll talk about it. Didn't turn out to be much of a vacation in a lot of ways, but
not at all. Aside from Thanksgiving and Christmas 2005, when my job was exploding.
Oh, right.
That was the least fun and most work-filled trip to San Diego I've ever had.
Yeah, so it's going to be a great episode, guys. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
All right.
Fun.
So, you've been teasing it for a while now. The performance highs shift over from the old system to the new system, Opus One.
It happened today at 1:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah, wow.
So excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you were spending the whole weekend getting things ready to make the switch, have the new system go live.
Right. And man, there is nothing like having to extract data from your system and try to find its patterns so that someone else can work with that data to make you realize all the exceptions you have going on and how messy things are. And
I was surprised when you mentioned the number. You know, I forget what you said. We'll talk about the meeting
the billing
later.
exception thing?
Yeah, the billing exception. And it was like, wow, that's like a quarter or a fifth.
It is. Yeah. Each month, there's like a quarter of the people in the studio need to do something different with their billing.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we have people who have grandfathered in rates from previous dates, and we have people on different tiers. We have people who have discounts for one reason or another, all of which is fine, but trying to communicate that in a way that the new company could set it up. Either I didn't communicate well or they made mistakes. It doesn't matter. They're a great company. Everything's cool. But we ended up going through every single client, every single day on the schedule for the next month.
Yeah.
And fixing the entire schedule. I mean, across the whole schedule, I think we found like 100 or 150 errors. And then as far as invoices went, when we just like ran through and compared the two systems' invoices for today, we found probably a fifth of them were wrong. So,
right.
So, woo.
Yeah, that's really something. And part of it was switching over in July, which you've talked about.
Yeah.
There were reasons to try to switch, before the rush when every other music company was going to...
Music school.
Yeah, music school was going to want to. And, July's tough because there's so many exceptions with people being on vacation and things that are out of the pattern.
Yes, exactly. And they tried to create patterns where there were none.
Right.
So they might see someone with a lesson 2 weeks in a row, but actually one of those is a makeup lesson and they're really a bi-weekly lesson, a bi-weekly schedule, but they would put in as a weekly and then the billing would be messed up as a result.
As painful as it was, I think ultimately it's going to be a good thing because it made you guys really dig in on the hardest version of,
But it was like, maybe not 12-hour days, but close. I mean, it was from the moment I woke up in the morning until the moment I went to bed.
Yeah.
And the reason it wasn't, 16-hour days is we would go out to dinner or go for a walk. So at least we got out of the building a couple times a day.
A few times. Then we got to hang out with your dad and Stephanie, and a couple times went to dinner and this and that, and got to hang out with your friend Hugo from
my friend from high school.
Yeah.
Been many, many years since we've seen each other. I don't know if... You'd never met him, I don't think.
I had not. I guess we had talked because I gave him some advice on buying a keyboard.
Right.
But that even was 5-8 years ago, a long time ago.
Yeah.
So, but that was fun, and we got to just hang out. And San Diego, of course, is gorgeous. And
the weather was perfect, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Got a little coolness in because it's been so warm here.
Got your annual boogie board training in.
Yeah, we did a little boogie boarding. We got in the water for about an hour. Mm-hmm. That's when all this happens. Yeah.
You're just too white, man. You're too white.
Yep, that is true. I don't know if it washed off or if just 30 SPF is just not enough to do the job.
Yeah, that probably gives you 30 minutes of protection.
That might, yeah. So, but we went to San Diego and we ate some burritos and worked on a bunch of stuff and then came back Sunday night, which is last night. Got in pretty late, and then today we had our quarterly meeting for Performance High.
Biannual, because this is...
Oh, biannual, sorry.
I'm not making everybody show up in person 4 times a year.
But this was an in-person one?
Yeah, so much fun.
And so much fun. We had, what did you say, 13, 14 people in person?
Something like that.
And then 4 on Zoom, I think.
Yeah.
3 or 4?
Let's see, it was KP, Alice, and Ingrid.
So 3.
Yeah, 3 on Zoom. So,
either way, full room.
And
it was great for everybody to get together. And
it happens so rarely. But.
And you ran down all the goals and numbers and where you've gotten things to. Mm-hmm. I've said a million times, I think it's so great how... transparent you are with people. And I think it's really inspiring, in fact, to a lot of the teachers when they are able to see just what you're putting effort into and the bigger picture you're thinking about and moving towards and you know that it's not just like business as usual. It's like, no, I'm constantly trying to make things better.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I really feel like we serve each other in the sense that, like, as a leader, I serve the employees, and the employees are serving me. Like,
sure.
we can't do this without each other. It's not
right.
It's never been, anything about, like, I need to tell you what to do, and you guys don't know how things work, and we have smart people.
Why
lead that way?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just fun and talking about future plans and all, but.
Yeah, and then you did all the things, but then people hung out for like an hour, and then lots of people had lessons later, and I from being there all day and just hearing people in the hallway, it really seemed like camaraderie and just attitude was at a real high.
Yeah,
I think everybody left that meeting on a real and there were quite a few new-ish people there.
Yes,
and I think that was great for them to kind of get a slice of, like, this is the style of business this is.
Yeah.
And totally. It was a good morning.
It sure was. I'm glad we got to. I really relaxed after that. Because I've been really pushing hard to get the Opus One migration done and the staff meeting presentation done. Like, those were both, quote, due on the same day. So
right.
Oh, it's been stressful. But
sure
you worked a lot this weekend in San Diego as well, and unfortunately your work was less productive than mine.
Yeah, no, I spent a ton of time on stuff. So, I mean, the big thing would be, some stuff went well. We got the drums back from the new No Address EP. Hard to say because that band was originally called New Address, so it's pretty easy to trip over that one. And Kevin went in and recorded drums for the new EP. And we got those back, and they're dynamite.
That's great. You were saying Kevin he was already great like 20 years ago, and he's just stellar
now. I was
now.
really impressed with his playing. I mean, he's always been great. I played with him in high school. He was great then, but like he's clearly been working and improving the whole time because, and the engineer, and I know his name is John, and I wish I remembered his last name. It's Nada Studios, and they're in upstate New York. He did My Chemical Romance and some other stuff. A bunch of other stuff. Sorry to be dismissive. Anyway, they delivered these beautiful sessions where there was a completely comped, meaning combined and edited, and then, all cleaned up, all prettied up version. And then, hey, here are the raw takes that we took parts from and made like a perfect take. And here's the perfect take, but if you want anything else, here's the other things.
That is a great, useful way to deliver that to you.
Super, super great system. And I was actually texting with Phil, who's the other producer in the band, and we were like, man, I'm listening to these raw takes, and like part of me wants to like go back and like just use some of the raw takes because they they're not as perfect, but like being unedited, they have an energy to it. And I am so picky with drums and drummers that's a lot to say that like, oh man, I kind of like just the way it feels when you're doing it that way. Or we were talking about doing that thing where maybe you leave the depending on the song, you could take the fixed tidied up drums from and use those in the verses, and then use the raw and crazy drums in the choruses, and then paste in the fixed up. Oh
man, I hadn't even thought about that.
Or vice versa. You could let the verses be all kind of, like let the chips fall where they may, just a little daredevil, and then the choruses tighten up, and just depending on the song. And then we were texting about it because we've both done records that way. Like that's something I will do when I'm. I did it recently on the Ipecac stuff. A lot of that stuff is that way, where parts of the drums are fixed and parts aren't, and it's so that you get a tension and release feeling.
Okay.
And it goes both ways. Sometimes the tightened up drums sound like a release, and sometimes the tightened up drums sound like we were kind of all over the place, and then wham, we're right on the beat.
Yeah.
And so it can work either way depending on.
Yeah, I totally feel that.
It's just you just have to play with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then we both were like, man, at the end of the day, like the comps they did and the way they put stuff together in the studio, it's like, this is pretty great. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel here. This is really good. Like, what are you going to get out of, squeezing that? Not a lot more juice in that rock.
But then you had some less good experiences.
I had a lot of less good experiences. I would say, other than the no address thing and all the nice things I had to say about that, my weekend was a complete wash, as in I got nothing productive done. I don't mind mentioning the company. There's a company that I ran into called Musiverse, which is, I don't know, Music Universe, and they left out a few letters. It's like MUSI verse.
You're making sure that they know how to spell it while you throw them under the bus.
Exactly. I won't 100% throw them under the bus. I mean, one of the things that attracts... So the idea is it's sort of a portal site, and you become a member, and then there's all these musician profiles, and they might play stringed instruments, cello, they might play guitar, they might play bass, they might be drummers or keyboard players. And basically you book a session with them. Well, you literally book a session with them, and then you send them your materials, and you can attend in person over Zoom, and they play on your recording. And one of the things that attracted me to Musiversal and trying it out in the first place is they do a really interesting thing where they do not pay musicians per session. They are paid a salary that is equal to $48,000 US. Depending on where they are. And if it's in the US, it's 48. And if the equivalent is different, if they're in Europe or whatever, they pay them whatever. And then it doesn't really matter how many sessions they do is the idea. And I was attracted to that because that's an equitable way to pay musicians. I mean, that's not all the money in the world, but it's very different from this kind of gig economy.
Right, where the faster you work, like you have to just like speed through stuff.
And scrape for the, or the Lyft Uber driver model of, you just get paid for whatever and we're going to take a big chunk. So I was really attracted to the idea, and I use session musicians a fair amount. But I felt like it would be a good thing to contribute to, because even though I use musicians a fair amount, I don't do it in any regular way. I'm, of course, paying gig work when I do that. So I might give you a song or two to do, and then I might not need you for 3 months. So I was like, this thing could be very cool if there was a regular income kind of thing for musicians, and let me experiment with it. I would say wholeheartedly a failure. I used it for 5 things at this point, and 4 of them came back with nothing usable.
And some attitude.
And some attitude from the musicians. I would say a lot more than I would have expected.
Yeah.
Like, it was not, they're not nice people. A couple of the people, 2 out of the 5, were maybe not friendly, but at least not kind of mean. And the amount of prep work that it apparently takes. I mean, I was not only giving them a reference track, not only playing a mock-up of, say, for example, here's how I want the piano part to go, but I'm just going to program it in so you can hear it, and then you listen to it and play it like a keyboard player. But also making literal sheet music and literal chord charts, and then here's reference tracks from the real world, here's the version we're kind of going for, and getting back stuff that was just like, this is not, who could use this? And they're they will not send you anything from a DAW, so they won't send you sessions, and you can't send them sessions, which would be incredibly useful, because before I realized that, I went through and made markers in the session, like, hey, slow down here, hey, just whole chords here, hey, pick up the dynamics here, hey, whatever. And then they were like, yeah, we don't take,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And then so I was like, okay, so I made a chart saying all those things, and then what I got back was nothing like...
You were saying it sounded like one guy didn't even listen to the reference track or play along with it, or like he played a completely different song or something?
His original message was complaining about, well, one of the problems, Musiversal, hey, check them out. Maybe it'll work for you. My experience is it's a very immature platform. The website does not work very well.
Oh, right,
so it's
yeah.
extremely hard uploading those resources to people and booking those things to people. The website hangs, and then you got to refresh, and you got to go back through and try to rebook it. It doesn't work very well. Again, a young company, tech stuff is hard. At the same time, and I've been going back and forth with support, and they have not really figured it out. But if you upload something and it happens to be wrong, you cannot then delete that.
Right.
So I re-uploaded. I tried to delete it, and I went back and forth with support, and then the session was coming up, and so I re-uploaded corrected files that said, new file corrected. And apparently the guy downloaded the wrong ones. And then was like, this doesn't make any sense, your chart's all wrong. And then so he apparently just turned off the guide vocal and the guide instruments and just played the wrong chart. He was like, I'm just going to play this with the chords I know for this song. And then just sent me back something where he had clearly turned off the guide vocal and just played the chords he knew for the song from whatever church arrangement or whatever. Clearly it was some church arrangement, which I was going for a churchy arrangement. It just didn't fit the vocal at all. He was like, your chart's terrible. And I'm like, yeah, you downloaded the wrong chart.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say, maybe at some point something like this could work out. I'm just very used to session musicians who do not need all the hand-holding and do not need all the delicate things. And I won't even take a Brian Stax into the equation, where Brian doesn't even want charts or chords from me. He's just going to listen to it a time or two, and then he's gonna send me 3 takes. He's gonna send me 2 takes where he just played along with exactly what he thought I wanted, and then he's gonna give me a 3rd take where he just like, I'm gonna take this in my direction, and if you like any of it, you keep it. Here you go. And so that's what I'm used to session musicians doing. If I send something to Ryan to play drums on it, I don't expect to have to write out his whole part. He's going to listen to the part. He's going to make some notes. He's going to listen to it for 10 minutes, and he's just going to play it a few times, and he's going to send me some takes. And it's going to be very close to what I wanted. Anyway, if you're looking for a job, if you're someone that I know, you're going to be one of the better people on that platform. And I hate to be mean about it, but... and that's probably a mean way to say it. It's a young thing. It was an interesting experiment. Again, it was a really good idea that, okay, these musicians are getting, not just their, doing some DoorDash thing where like
Right.
you don't know when you're going to get the call to do a session and you've got to agree to do it at last minute, and
Right.
if you want the gig you better say you can do it ASAP. It seemed like a humane way to be hiring out musician work.
Yeah.
And I was very
Yeah.
interested in it because of that. And it's not super cheap, but I was like, well, if I did a few things a month, that would make it comparable with hiring out, you know, because again, I don't do it all the time. So far, not digging it.
That's too bad. You were so frustrated. You spent so much time working
I spent
this weekend.
so many hours on stuff just to get back something that was just like, you know, and I'm not the best notator in the world, but also you've got a fully fleshed out reference track. You've got a chord chart that's just here's the chords and the stops, and I'm notating where to do the thematic thing, and you know, and then the notation's there. It may not be pretty, but it's there, and to get something back that's just like I literally can't use this, you know, was just like, man, there are so many faster ways to do things than just like. I mean, I could learn to play the piano part in the time that it took me to, you know.
Well, you know, when you talk about some of your artists who, you know, try a social media strategy or try booking a certain type of gig or whatever, and they find they really try and it doesn't pan out, your advice to them is often, well, now you know. Now you know that path doesn't work.
I think that is that is such good advice of my own that you're giving back to me. No, it's really true. I mean, there's even when you hit a dead end, that there's value in hitting a dead end because you go, okay, well then stop going that direction, and now we know that. And
unfortunately, you spent, I mean, a long weekend and you know some time previously, but a lot of time I mean, in the big scheme of things, that was worth trying.
It was
wasn't
worth
that
trying.
long. I mean, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
But then you had another frustrating day today.
Yeah, I had
a.
So one of the other things I did over the weekend, because I had lots of time to sit in a chair.
Because I was working the whole time?
Yeah. Was I updated, one of the main softwares I use for production is Logic. And they had a new version of Logic that is Logic 11. And it had what looked like some killer new features. So I got tempted and I updated from 10 to 11. And boy, if you're on Logic, I got to say from my experience, it's not ready yet. I've said all the time, man, avoid updating your stuff until absolutely, like, you want to be the last person updating.
Yeah.
You want to update when stuff is stopping working because you have not updated.
Right. Right. Because then you know it's supported out in the world.
It's supported. Everybody else has had their problems with it.
Yeah.
To be, in my own defense, it's been out for 2 or 3 months. It's not super new. But I am experiencing sessions that just won't open, are just crashing on... They don't even get to opening. They just are loading, crash. Loading, crash. I can figure out how to... I don't want to get technical, but I can turn off the part of the software that actually makes sound.
In a DAW, that's kind of important.
And that's kind of important, but it will let it open because it's not doing any of the processes that make sound. Mm-hmm. And then I can go in and adjust stuff and get rid of stuff so that it won't. I mean, I just won't even get into it, but almost unusable. I was trying to just track... I was just trying to overdub a rhythm guitar part to get to a client, and it basically would not do it. It was glitching, it was hanging up, it was crashing repeatedly. I'm unfortunately thinking that I'm going to have to jump out of that software completely for possibly a number of months.
Yeah.
Maybe I can figure something out. Maybe I can figure out a way to downgrade, which is very hard, but I think if I go to an Apple store, I can get downgrade back to the old software.
I bet if it's this bad, they're seeing a lot of people...
Well, there's a million message board things, but also it's Apple, so they are not exactly, you know, they don't care about the little...
Well, the Apple store is generally pretty helpful.
No, the Apple store, they probably have something figured out. But man, excellent example, guys. Do not update.
It's the lesson today.
Yeah, like, boy, I mean, you know, and then the new features that I was like, oh, that would really help me out, and those turned out to be total duds. They don't actually work. So it was just it was a lot of wasted effort. I would say maybe maybe put 30 hours of work into nothing that turned out to be useful.
That's frustrating.
Yeah.
Well, let's see if we can turn this podcast around to a positive note, but before we end it. You refuse? Just in a bad mood?
No. No.
You know, we've done a great job over this year, 2.5 years, of like bringing a good mood. Like, you know, doing this once a week, there are plenty of days where we really don't feel like doing it. We're really not in a good mood. I think we've done a pretty good job most of the time of bringing some energy.
Yeah.
So, I'm just patting ourselves on the back here.
Okay.
That's all. So, I mean, let's look forward.
Yeah.
So it's 4th of July weekend coming up.
Yeah, 4th of July. And we are, for once, recently, we haven't done it for a while, we are doing a July 4th gig.
Right.
Up in Vail in the mountains.
Yeah.
And I forget, boy, I was thinking since we're going to be in Vail anyway, there was something I was thinking about doing. Yeah.
Are we up there just overnight? I think I have a gig 2 days after that.
Yeah, well, we are in Vail on the 4th of July, and then we are at Boot Barn Hall.
Oh, right.
On Colorado Springs.
Of course.
In Colorado Springs on July 6th, that Saturday.
Yeah. I need to get my voice back in shape.
I need to get my guitar hands back in shape. I was playing a little bit today, and I was like, oh, I haven't played this in a while.
Yeah, I haven't been singing Stevie Nicks in a while.
Yeah, I know. I need to do some of my burn-in stuff and get the dexterity back. But
I need to get that root of tongue tension that allows for the tremolo.
Yeah, right.
The tremolo being like the sheep bleat kind of thing. It requires some tongue tension that's not normally part of
Takes
how
a lot of muscle. But anyway, that'll be fun going up into the mountains, and then we're going to stay overnight, and maybe we'll get a hike in, or we'll figure out something fun to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then we got to run back because I do have a recording session Saturday before we go to the Springs.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's going to be a full weekend.
Yeah.
But at least we're going to get to make some music. I think that's another thing. I've just been literally... Gigs have been pretty far between, and I'm missing the fun of stomping around. And
exactly. Yeah, we haven't. I think I play more shows than you do lately, but I mean it's all been computer work lately. Yeah,
it has been a lot of computer stuff, and you know, and the July 4th thing should be fun. But then the real thing I'm looking forward to is actually doing a stage show.
Yeah.
At Boot Barn on the 6th. So
yeah, that's always a good place to play.
Yeah, something to look forward to, and well, let's tie it off.
All right. Who sponsored us?
Yeah, we are sponsored by Musiversal. Absolutely, guys. If it sounds fun to you, try it. They do have a link there that if you wanted to work for them, you can send them your credentials, and who knows how that works. But we are sponsored by them. And Performance High Voice and Music Studio, but not that because Performance High...
Voice and Music Studio.
There we did it.
Ah, you did it wrong. You've never done that before.
I just flailed it.
I think we're both just fried.
We're maybe a little fried. I mean, we did get in at 1 in the morning.
Yeah, we got in at 1 in the morning and then had a morning meeting. And that was
9,
after working insanely hard all week. And we had, out on the way to San Diego, we had a 6 a.m. flight. So...
Yeah, so we were up at 3 in the morning, and then,
Yeah. All right.
It has been a weekend.
Ooh, yeah. So, we don't need to bring it down anymore.
Blah, blah, blah.
We're going to go do some gigs and have fun, and we'll see you next week. Bye.